Last week, Google DeepMind dropped what might be the most important medical AI release of the year.
There, I'm your virtual medical assistant. How can I help you today?
Hello, my right shoulder really hurts.
Well, what you're seeing in this example is how, with real-time, low-latency video processing, the AI system can do more than just take the history. It can actually perform a physical examination that's looking for very subtle cues from the patient, but also instructing them through a range of movements and tests, which is the kind of thing a real doctor might do on a call.
Everyone's calling this the AI doctor. But pull up the actual blog post and Google is being surgically careful. They explicitly say this is not for diagnosis, cure, or treatment of disease. Today, we're going to talk about why they're being so careful. We're going to talk about what Google actually built and what the data actually shows. And then we're going to talk about the part nobody's covering, the gap between the marketing and the medical legal reality, because that gap is where the real story lives. So let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to SpeakMD. I'm Dr. AJ Balaram. I'm a full-time physician and orthopedic surgeon, and on this channel we cut through the hype on the technology that's reshaping how physicians actually practice. Today we're doing a full breakdown of Google's DeepMind. This is what Google is calling their AI Co-Clinician. This dropped on April 30th, and it was introduced as a blog post from Google, and it is a lot. Before we go any further, one thing has to be said up front. This is not a product. It's a research announcement. Google's own disclaimer on this is unusually strong. It's important because the second-tier coverage of this announcement, a lot of it is making it sound like a product launch. It isn't. But here's the catch. The data they did release, it's genuinely impressive on a narrow band of tasks. So today we're going to do what we always do on this channel. We're going to look at what's real, what's not, what's missing, and what it actually means for your practice. By the way, if you find this breakdown useful, do me a favor and hit subscribe. We do this every week, and drop your take in the comments because the comments are where we all learn. So let's get into it. Let's start with the architecture because this is pretty clever. So the AI Co-Clinician is built on Google's Gemini product, and it uses what Google calls a dual agent architecture. We've talked about that in some of our other videos before. It's essentially one AI agent monitoring or supervising another AI agent. In this specific product, there's a talker module, the one that talks to the patient, and a planner module, the one that's following the conversation and making decisions about where to go next. So what can it actually do? In a simulation, it can hold a real-time audio and video conversation with the patient. It can guide a patient through a physical exam. There's a video on the DeepMind blog that shows a patient being walked through shoulder maneuvers to identify a rotator cuff injury. I'll come back to that one. As an orthopedic surgeon, I have thoughts. This audio-video interface can interact with the patient. It, for example, can correct a patient's use of their inhaler and their technique when they're using their inhaler for asthma. It can synthesize evidence to answer open-ended primary care questions, and it can handle pretty complex pharmacology. So that's the system. Now let's talk about whether it actually works or not. So Google's DeepMind ran 3 main studies. It's important to review these because this is where the marketing and the science start to diverge. So study 1 was clinician-facing evidence synthesis. So what this was 98 realistic primary care questions. It was curated by attending physicians, and then it was tested blind against another ChatGPT type model. In this particular study, the physicians that were reviewing the answers preferred the AI Co-Clinician results from Google. So it preferred Google's Co-Clinician responses to other GPT models. Pretty understandable, as Google's Co-Clinician is made for medical responses as opposed to some of the other GPT models that were just made for general knowledge. So that's comparing Co-Clinician to a ChatGPT style model. It's interesting, but still very far away from Google making an AI doctor. And the things that stand out, it logged 0 critical errors in 97 of 98 cases. You hear that and you think, amazing. Now flip it. It logged 1 critical error in 98 cases. So if you scale that, In real primary care, where you're seeing hundreds of patients a week, that number gets very uncomfortable very fast. So keep that in mind. Study 2, Pharmacology. 600 questions on active ingredients, interactions, and dosages. So this is the most defensible AI exceeds physicians' claim in the entire announcement. Pharmacology is high volume, it's reference driven, and it's a known weak spot in clinical practice. This is exactly where AI augmentation actually has obvious value. But I don't think physicians actually think their knowledge of drug interactions and dosing in the pharmacology sector is better than a computer's. Even before artificial intelligence and computers in general, we would refer to a pharmacopoeia as a handy reference to look up drug dosage and interactions. So the fact that the AI could do this better than the clinicians, interesting, but not a real game changer. So the last study they looked at was kind of the big one. This was multimodal telemedicine consultations.
Hello there. I'm your virtual medical assistant. How can I help you today?
I have terrible abdominal pain.
For years, our team has been working to understand how AI might meaningfully augment the doctor-patient relationship.
This is where it gets interesting. So this was randomized, crossover, interface-blinded simulation, 20 standardized outpatient scenarios. So they just had internal medicine residents acting as patients. They designed it in collaboration with Harvard and Stanford medical schools. And the result in this situation, real primary care doctors beat Google's AI Co-Clinician across all 7 domains. And then the widest gaps, the places where the AI got crushed, was red flag recognition and physical exam guidance. Those are the 2 things that basically prevent patients from dying. So DeepMind's own conclusion is this: these systems are, quote, currently best used as supportive tools for practitioners rather than replacements for clinical judgment. That shoulder exam demonstration that I mentioned, it's a video. There's no quantitative result behind it, no comparison against a surgeon doing a specific examination maneuver. If you watch this video, you can see that the AI asked the patient to perform a forward elevation move. Now, this is something that I do every single day in my practice, and you can see in the video that the patient brings their arm up to about 90 or 95 degrees. Because Google is looking at this from a telemedicine standpoint in just one plane, the Google clinician thinks that that's full range of motion. So there's obviously a significant defect there where Google's clinician is trying to evaluate the range of motion, but because they can't see in 2 planes, because it's just a single face on camera, they're unable to assess a true physical exam. There are no patient outcomes. Every endpoint here is what was the quality of the consultation scored by other physicians that are reviewing it. So where's the 30-day misdiagnosis rate? Where is the hospitalization rate? Where are the patient-reported outcomes? Where is anything that actually maps to whether the patient did better or not? Until that data exists, this is software demoware, not clinical medicine. As we always talk about on this channel, one of the most important things that we have to understand is, although these artificial intelligence tools can do some really cool tricks on video, what is the end goal? It needs to be decreasing morbidity and mortality for patients. The artificial tech tricks that they're showing on these videos, none of them purport to decrease morbidity or mortality, and therefore they're just demoware, not clinically useful. So Google DeepMind's headline framing for all of this is what they call triadic care: physician, patient, AI agent. It's a 3-way relationship. The doctor keeps the clinical authority, the AI extends the doctor's reach. It's a smart frame. It diffuses the whole AI replaces doctor anxiety. It keeps the physician as the legal decision maker, and it positions the AI as more of a force multiplier, something that aids the physician in increasing their output. And honestly, if it works the way they describe it, that's a genuinely interesting model. So in this situation, if you had one physician supervising multiple AI agents doing history taking and intake type questionnaires, and then the physician is supervising, this could plausibly serve a much larger panel of patients. So that's the productivity multiplier thesis. it's worth taking seriously. If it allows us to see more patients while still maintaining the quality of care for our patients, that's something that we should take notice of. But the questions that DeepMind doesn't really answer are important too. How many AI-mediated patient encounters can one physician supervise before supervision becomes a legal fiction? If the AI gathers the history, suggests a differential, proposes the plan, and the physician signs off in 30 seconds, so who actually made that diagnosis? And what happens to the physician-patient relationship when the bulk of the patient's interaction is with the artificial intelligence and the human just comes in to sign off at the end? The critique argues that clinicians are being framed as partners in care, but increasingly regulated to supervisory or validation functions, while algorithms do the core cognitive work. So that's that concept of de-skilling that we talk about on this channel quite a bit. The issue is if we turn over the cognitive reasoning and the medical decision-making to artificial intelligence and just act as supervisors of their output, basically what we're doing is decreasing our skill at diagnostics and treatment. DeepMind's core moral argument for this technology is physician shortage. So the gap is real. Nobody's disputing that there's a shortage of physicians. In fact, it's the argument that every artificial intelligence company that is aiming to disrupt healthcare uses as its excuse to propel forward without specific regulation. The question is whether artificial intelligence is the answer to the physician shortage or not. The shortage of physicians is partly a distribution problem. Rural and low-resource settings have the worst shortages. High-income urban centers have resources to deploy these systems first. Only 15% of hospitals in low and middle-income countries have the AI infrastructure to run something like this. So the technology that's pitched as expanding access could very easily widen the access gap, because the smartphones, the broadband, the EHRs, the supervising clinicians, that's exactly what the underserved settings don't have. So the legal scholars that are looking at artificial intelligence participating in medical care have looked at physician AI use and broken it into multiple scenarios. And there's only really two that carry meaningful liability risk, and both should worry you. So scenario A, AI correctly recommends the standard of care, the physician disregards it, the patient is harmed. Of course, who's liable in that situation? The physician. Scenario B, AI wrongly recommends non-standard care, the physician follows that, and the patient is harmed, and then the physician, again, is liable. So you kind of have to read between the lines. As long as you agree with the artificial intelligence or use it as a confirmatory helper in doing what you were going to do anyway, you're fine. The moment you accept a personalized AI recommendation that deviates from the standard of care, your malpractice exposure goes up. And that's even if the AI is right. So that is a really perverse incentive structure. It punishes exactly the use case where AI is most valuable, the personalized off-guideline care. But here's the kicker. As AI use becomes more prevalent, not using it could eventually breach the standard of care as well. That inversion is what defense attorneys are watching most closely right now. As I say in a lot of my videos, although it sounds great for a tech company to share in some of the liability associated with the malpractice concerns that we have, the bigger picture, if we look at it from a zoomed out view, is as tech companies continue to take liability from physicians, they're actually eroding physicians' autonomy at the same time. A few things worth surfacing that the announcement completely glosses over. Hallucinations. So Google's Co-Clinician dual agent planner architecture is specifically designed to address this. But as we talked about before, one critical error in 98 cases means it's still hallucinating. And if you extrapolate that 1 in 98 to seeing hundreds of patients a week and thousands of patients a year, that's a real concern. Point 2 is sycophancy. This is a fancy word to describe how artificial intelligence wants to please the person asking the question. We know as physicians, sometimes we have to give bad news and information that patients don't like. If an artificial intelligence is constantly trying to please the patient, they might not be able to give the same type of bad news that we need to give at times. And in a clinical conversation where the patient walks in, they have their own internal pet theory of what they think is going on. And agreeable artificial intelligence is a dangerous artificial intelligence. So let's bring it home. The 3 things I want you to take away from this video. Number 1, AI Co-Clinician is real technology. The dual agent talker planner architecture is genuinely clever. The pharmacology data is the most defensible AI beats doctors claim out there right now. And the system is clearly state of the art among AI systems. So this is Google's shot at developing an AI doctor. Although they're not calling it that, they're calling it a co-clinician to work as a partner with doctors. It's quite obvious that they are trying to replace portions of what doctors do. Number 2, it is also not a doctor. It loses to primary care physicians across all 7 major consultation domains. It got crushed on red flag recognition and physical exam. And then number 3, the legal reality does not match the marketing. Triadic care preserves your liability, not Google's. Until vendor-borne liability becomes the norm, the physician is the one holding the bag when something goes wrong. So multiple different models have now led to this particular point, and I'm quite sure that they're going to continue to attempt to improve it. The arc is real, so we have to pay attention to it. So if you got value out of this, do me 3 quick favors. Hit subscribe. We do this every week. Drop a comment. Tell me where your line is on AI in clinical practice. I read all of them. And share this with one colleague who needs to see it, especially if they're in primary care. This one is going to land in their inbox sooner than they think. Thank you so much for watching. I know your time is valuable. Have a great day.